What's going on, guys? And thank you for tuning in to another night of live book club with me, Robert Nichols, here on the Closersklub. Today, we're going to be talking about Talent Means Nothing. That is the title of today's book club meeting. And we are going to be going through the first three chapters of Outliers. And we're going to leverage Outliers to talk about why talent means nothing. When we hear the word talent, we think of the all-time greats such as Tom Brady, LeBron James, Michael Jordan. Insert your favorite hero, character, anyone out there who is doing big things. And the reality is it because of their talent, or is it something else that allows them to be an outlier in order for them to be successful? And to really myth bust the whole concept of needing to be special or have special gifts or have special talents, I definitely want to start off by talking about a guy like Tom Brady. All of us know Tom Brady has won 7 Super Bowls. He's been to 9 Super Bowls, and he's broken all types of records. But guess what? He got picked in the 6th round, right? He was the 199th pick, and there's no other person who's been picked that late as an NFL prospect quarterback that has been able to achieve such great heights. So he wasn't looked at as someone who had a lot of talent, yet he was able to achieve great things. Let's look at Michael Jordan, another all-time great, obviously NBA superstar, greatest of all time, in my opinion. Obviously, that's debatable. Some folks say LeBron. My son and I go back and forth on this. But the reality is he got cut for his high school basketball team, yet he was able to become the greatest of all time. And then lastly, this is a figure who's very polarizing. He's a guy that we all know, and he is currently the richest man in the world, or one of the richest men in the world, and that is Elon Musk. Did you know that Elon Musk was considered slow in high school? That's correct. Many of his teachers considered him slow, and a lot of it had to do with his learning style versus their teaching style, or he was bored, or whatever have you. But I really want everyone to know out there that talent isn't the way to go. Talent, yes, will get you to a certain place, but there's much more to success. And this book really starts to break that down. Outliers, chapters 1 through 3. That's what we went through tonight. And so let's get into the book. You know, he really talks about what an outlier is, guys. So what is an outlier? It's somebody who stands out from the norm. And in most cases, someone who's extremely remarkable or someone who's extremely unremarkable. For the purposes of tonight's book club meeting, we're going to be covering the remarkable people in our worlds, in our lives, in our history that have shaped the world and shaped the way we live, and have likely shaped the way that you think and the way that you approach whatever goals you put on your heart to pursue in your life. The book starts out in the intro with the Rosetto mystery. So I have my outline here, and I'm going to jump into what the Rosetto mystery is. Rosetto was a city or town in Italy in the 1800s. And in 1882, there was a group of Italians that came over from Rosetto looking for a better life. And so they ended up settling into a town in Pennsylvania, which they named the same town name as their hometown. And ultimately, the mystery here is that these folks were thriving, right? You had all these old Italians, young Italians, and folks who were eating, their native food. They had built their churches. They had settled in really well. However, there was one thing about the town that separated it from all the other towns around the area, and even back home, and that's no one in the town was dying of heart disease. Everyone was dying primarily of old age. And so there's a doctor, his name was Stuart Wolf, that was like, why the heck are these people not dying? Like, what is so special about this town that makes these people so special, where the neighboring towns, anyone in over 50, you got a bunch of guys and women with heart disease and having heart attacks. Because back then they didn't have heart medication. Don't forget that. And so as he goes on this journey of self-discovery and discovery of what is going on with this town, he first checks their genetics. And so he wants to see if these Italians have special genetics that make them immune to heart disease or drug addiction. Because again, in the town, they had no issues. These people were thriving. And so genetics, he went back to their hometown in Italy, and folks were still dying of heart disease. So he knew that wasn't the case. He then checked their diets, and 41% of their diet consisted of fatty foods. Now, how are you not dying of heart disease when you're eating 41% of your diet is fatty foods? And so he compared the neighboring towns in the same area, because like maybe it's the air quality. And while they had similar diets, they were dying at a much faster rate. Then he was like, maybe it's exercise. And it wasn't exercise. These folks weren't working out. And I'll cut to the chase here, guys. Ultimately, what he found was that it was a community of love and care for one another that allowed these people to thrive. They had much lower levels of stress because they had built their community around their church, around a sense of we are one people. We are going to support each other. There were no homeless people. There were no people on welfare. There were no people struggling in the town. And they really just created this sense of caring and belonging. And so Malcolm Gladwell starts with this introduction because he does the same thing about talent. He's like, we think it's innate. We think it's people that are special. We think that talent is enough. And ultimately, he dissects it and tests all these different theories and teaches us that there's way more to success than just what we're born with. And so I thought it was a pretty powerful illustration of that, comparing the town and kind of that discovery of how these folks were thriving in the same way we can all thrive in our lives. And so the first thing is he basically proves it's not what you think, right? When you become successful, it's not talent, it's not luck, it's not even intelligence, right? Because the smartest man in the world is not the richest man in the world. Yeah, Elon Musk is smart, but there's guys with even higher IQs than him that he talks about in this book that are not as wealthy as him. And so, really what it comes down to, and we're going to break it down, but hard work, opportunity, and environment are the top three things that will allow anyone to go from a zero to a hero and beyond. And so chapter 1, I basically self-titled, I changed the title, but the system is rigged against you. And it's called the Matthew effect. And so he starts off the chapter saying, quoting a scripture verse, Matthew 25:29. And he says, he who has shall be given more, and he who has not, what little he has will be taken away. And you'll see why it's very important the way he led this out. So the habits that we have in our lives will yield very specific outcomes. For example, if you look at a guy like Warren Buffett, right? And if Warren Buffett says, hey, I want to coach you, I want to mentor you, and I want you to invest money in me, are you going to say yes or no? Because we're looking at the outcome. We know this guy can deliver. We're absolutely going to trust that he can do what he says he can do. On the flip side, if you look at the founder of WeWork, which went bankrupt multiple times, or the founder of Blockbuster, which went bankrupt and didn't see the writing on the wall, we're not likely to trust those people. And so essentially, when we look to make decisions relative to who we trust, when it comes to, knowing how to get to where we want to go, you want a framework that actually works. And so he gives us these different examples and starts off by talking about hockey players. Did you guys know that 60 to 70% of junior hockey players were born in January, February, and March? They were all born in the first 3 months of the year, right? Now, maybe it's because of the horoscope, right? They're Pisces and all these different signs, or maybe it's something else. And what he found is that based on your birth year, when it comes to sports or anything, especially as kids, if you're older, right? Let's say you were born in January and you're a hockey player in Canada like these kids were, and then you have one of your teammates who was born in December. He's 11 months younger than you. And then you have this special ID camp that's identifying the top talent in your neighborhood. And now you're born in December, you want to be one of the best, and you're competing against kids who are 11 months older than you. They're more mature physically, they're more mature mentally. You don't stand a chance. And so what ends up happening is the kids with the highest skill level at that age, they get elevated, they get better training, they get better coaching. And so as they get better coaching, that compounds over time. And so that kid that was born in December really never has a fair shot to be an elite hockey player in this type of an environment unless they're doing some other things. We're going to talk about the solution to this because he does offer a great solution. And so the same thing happens in English soccer. It's all about birth year. And so at younger ages, the kids get way more resources, guys. And so a lot of times kids think they're not that good. They're not good enough. But the reality is the system is rigged against them. And so as parents and even in our own lives, it's on us to be vigilant of these setups, because a lot of times we're thinking our kid may not have potential when every kid is capable, especially if they have the passion and desire to pursue certain types of things. Same goes with standardized testing. He shares that kids who are older tend to test better. Kids who are younger tend to test worse. Obviously makes sense, right? A kid who's 11 months older is just a little bit more mature and a little bit more developed. So, as I said before, we look at different people. Elon Musk, he was labeled as slow in high school, guys. Crazy, right? He was born in June and he was a late bloomer. A guy like Gary Vaynerchuk, many of you know who he is. He was told by a teacher that he would have never amount to much. We look at Richard Branson, well-known billionaire in England. Same thing happened to him. He was labeled as slow and lazy and then diagnosed with dyslexia. And so we know that at the end of the day, there are definitely examples of people out there who achieved amazing feats, but early in life they were not given a fair shot. So the rules matter, guys. And so, from kind of reading this first section of the book, I really want to encourage folks to reflect on society as a whole, right? Because when decisions are made about how we set up these sports programs, how we set up these schools, how we set up this testing, there really isn't much care given to, what advantages and disadvantages and biases are in the way we set these things up. And so, that's really the one lesson that I took away at the end of how we can make it better. And so Mario was on here. You said you were born in June, Mario. There you go, late bloomer. It's all good, man. It's all good. So you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, man, it's definitely important to really just be mindful, especially when we're raising our kids, raising our families, and living in the world, that sometimes there are biases that we have to make sure we equip our kids to overcome. And like I said, we're going to get to that. And so the next step he talks about is the solution to these innate biases in our educational systems and in the sporting systems in our society as a whole. And it's called the 10,000 hour rule. And essentially, he's saying that the minute that you do any activity for at least 10,000 hours, you've essentially achieved a high level of mastery. And when you achieve a high level of mastery, you can become world class. That is essentially the foundation for becoming an outlier. And so some people do end up getting extra help, extra treatment because of their age. But ultimately, we all have to take responsibility for our lives and put in that work to get that 10,000 hours. And so one of the greatest examples he gives is the Beatles. Everyone knows who the Beatles are, right? And so with the Beatles, I got Junior in here, and Mauricio Florian says he was born in November. I see you, buddy. That's it, man. It's all good, right? They didn't give you a chance, but here you are tonight. And I know you're leveling up, man. So appreciate you sharing. And if we go back to the Beatles, in 1960, the Beatles were just getting out of high school. They were not that good of a cover band in England, to be honest with you guys. And so there was a club promoter named Bruno, or excuse me, a strip club owner named Bruno in Germany, right? Who came to England, and he wanted to get some bands to play, because back then in the 60s in the strip club scene, the red light district, they would basically have music playing 24/7, live music. So with that said, you got Derek who just chimed in. February, baby, graduated 19, totally different life form. I love it, man. Life from 17 to 19. I believe it, brother. I believe it, man. But yeah, the Beatles were basically recruited by their promoter, the guy who was their manager, linked up with a owner of a club in Hamburg, Germany, named Bruno. He owned a strip club. And back then, guys, I'll paint the picture for you. They basically had live music playing 24/7 to attract patrons to come into the clubs. And so they'd come to England and get like 10 bands and then schedule them and fly them over. And these dudes, they're paying peanuts to perform, but the performers didn't mind, especially young guys in their early 20s, some of them even teenagers, when they get free alcohol. And as they put it, as many girls as they could handle. So they were having a blast over there. They went over there multiple times. But the interesting thing about that, right? Because they kept going to Hamburg, Germany to perform, they were performing 8 hours at a time. Could you imagine playing music 8 hours at a time for 7 days straight? That'd be crazy exhausting. And so they had to adapt their style of play. They had to change things up a bit. And they ended up doing that for almost 2 years, multiple trips for 2 years. And so they did 1,200 shows, guys, over that course of time. And a lot of musicians, a lot of artists, to put it into perspective, they don't do 1,200 shows in their whole careers. And so by performing that much, when they came back to England, they were a totally different band. They were totally transformed. The way that they were able to play, the way that they were able to perform, it just was another level. And so that's really what led to their greatness. Again, they were written off as underachievers up until that point. So I wanted to just share that story with you to give you an example of an accelerated path to 10,000 hours to obviously one of the most prolific rock bands of all time. Another example of this is Bill Gates. Bill Gates had early access to computer in his high school. He went to a private high school. There was a mom's club. The mom's club donated money to a computer center. And so from an early age, he was able to program computers from 17 up until like 20. When he went to college, he went to Harvard. He was better than all the programmers and software engineers at Harvard, dropped out his sophomore years, and the rest is history. The man became a billionaire, but he had the advantage of having like about 20 to 30,000 hours of time and before he even went to Harvard. And so that's another example that he benefited from his era. Really the lesson from all of this, guys, is very simple. There are always extraordinary opportunities for your error. But for us, forget about our age, forget about, how our life was set up and the teachers counting us out, the parents counting us out, the system counting us out. It doesn't matter, because ultimately it's on us as we become adults to identify those opportunities for us, for our families, and for our children. And so the next piece that I'm going to talk about are the errors in the history of time that really led to the rise of billionaires, of multimillionaires, and the extremely successful. And Malcolm goes through a list of a lot of these people, but I'm going to go through a list of the errors so that we can see where we came from when folks were really making the most money, and where we're headed, and where we are today, and where those opportunities lie for you to really be able to capitalize on your skill set, on the era we're in, and on your innate talent and abilities and desires to make a profit. So let's get into it here, guys. So the first era I'm going to talk about is the land era. From the year 0 to the year 1750, wealth was tied to owning land. If you own land, then you could have farming, you could have food, you could have shelter, and you could sell food, you could sell shelter, you could sell land, you could rent your property. And so really from the year 0 to the year 1750, it was all about building wealth by acquiring land. Well, a lot of us on here are real estate investors. As you know, I'm a real estate investor. And so this era obviously makes a lot of sense. And so it transitioned very quickly in 1750 with the rise of machines and the industrial era. And so what came with that was infrastructure and energy. And then the machines to mine oil, the machines to make steel, the machines to make infrastructure. And so that was where we saw the rise of guys like Carnegie and Rockefeller, who started with nothing and became some of the richest people to this day of all time, because they were in an era where there were vast opportunities, but they recognized it and they took advantage of it. And the same goes for us. And so after 1954, in the industrial era, from 54 to 1978, it became the distribution age, because what the industrial era did was it laid the foundation for infrastructure, railroads. We had the oil pipeline, we had energy production through oil, no more gas lamps and candles, but we actually had, and then we also had electricity. And so once we had all this energy produced, we were able to really start to elevate as a society. And it led to folks who could produce products. They needed to be able to distribute it to the masses, right? They had to distribute it through stores. And that's really was the main vehicle of that. And so this age led to the rise of companies like Walmart, Woolworth, and other companies that are still around today, because they were the main distribution channels. They were the Amazon of their time, Walmart still being one of them. And so a lot of folks don't know this, but Jeff Bezos modeled Amazon after Walmart and actually poached a lot of the Walmart employees and executives to come work for Amazon, and got a massive lawsuit. He ended up having to settle out of court. And it became a very messy situation. But I figured I'd share that with you guys, because a big part of Jeff Bezos' strategy was the shortcut. And so by him leveraging that and kind of understanding the distribution age, we transitioned to a different age after that. And it was the technology era. And this era led to the rise of Bill Gates, Hewlett Packard, Kodak, Xerox, Apple. That was from 1978 to 1994. And so these guys made their money by leveraging technology, building computers, building software that could solve problems in the real world for companies and for individuals. Obviously Macs with the PCs, and Microsoft and IBM for business use initially. Now we use it for everything. And so that lasted all the way until 1994. And so as you guys can see, these eras keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So from 94 to 2003, that was the information age. That's the rise of the internet. And so that's where anyone could kind of jump in, set up a .com or internet company and provide service, solve problems, and make money, guys. We know the .com bubble happened in 2002, 2003, because there was such a frenzy and such a craze around the ability to set up a website that could instantly connect with anyone you're targeting. And then from there, you're able to provide value and you're able to make money. They're able to pay you for value, guys. Like that was over a device like a computer. Unreal. But it made the world a lot smaller. So once the .com bubble kind of died down, we then had the techno info entertainment age, right? Technology, information, entertainment, TIE. And that gave rise to guys like Russell Simmons, who built Def Jam Records, and other moguls that came up during that era that leveraged technology to provide entertainment. to others, guys. And obviously, this includes all types of entertainment over the internet. There are many folks that have done very well with this. Netflix is still leveraging that model. Obviously, we know there's the illicit side of the business, the adult film industry leverage that model, pornography leverage that model, technology and information entertainment, and that still is a model that is in play today. But it really in 2008 was kind of the peak of it. And then from 2008 until 2022 was a long run, guys. We jumped into the partnership age, and COVID did something. We're going to talk about that. But the partnership age is basically where companies like Amazon, Apple, and others partner with people, YouTube, and allow people to create content. Like the platform we're on right now, this is a partnership. YouTube has a platform. I'm creating the content, and I'm connecting with you through their platform. And if there's advertisements happening here, we're partners. They're going to pay me a cut of the ads that play during this. And so same thing happened with Amazon Books, right? Amazon allowed book publishers to put their books on the site. Amazon took their 20%, gave the rest to the publisher or the rest to the author. Apple Music, same thing with the music industry and the artists. They partnered with the music industry, created a distribution platform, and they shared the profits. Same thing goes for the App Store. If you create an app now, you literally can create an app and have access to the whole world. And the whole world can have access to you through your app that you put into the App Store or the Android store. And so that was a model that came to rise in 2008 to 2022. And it's still obviously thriving today. But we have a new age that we are in now from 2022 until who knows when. And it is the AI age. And if you're not using AI, I promise you will fall behind. I'll say it again. If you're not using AI, I promise that you guys will fall behind. And so I really encourage you guys to start exploring AI. I use it to write emails. I use it to edit. I use it to edit videos. I use it for scheduling. I mean, I use it to kind of give me ideas of what's happening in the stock market and to analyze data and give me advice on how to diversify my portfolio. It just is such a great tool. But if you want to use it the right way, right? I tell my kids this all the time. If you want better answers, you have to ask better questions. And so we're just at the tip of the iceberg of what AI can do. Obviously, it can do voice recording, text message campaigns. It can respond as you, right? It can literally interact as if it were you. And so it's a very powerful tool. And I believe we're at the very beginning of that journey. And I encourage you guys to kind of look at this list that I said, especially like the techno information, right? Technology side, the partnership side, or the AI side, and decide which one of those models really align with your personality and they're going to allow you to thrive in this next era. I think that's really, really, really important for us. The other quick thing too, guys, as I wrap up, I got one little section here. If anyone wants to jump on tonight and we can have an interactive conversation around some of this stuff, I'm happy to do that. I'll just shoot you the link. Just send me your number in the text, in the chat here, and I will get you connected. Just make sure I got my my stuff here. I think I left my phone, but we'll figure that out. I can shoot you an email. You put your email in the chat, and you can jump on the call. So that's pretty much it as far as the first 3 chapters. The last piece was he did a case study of one of the smartest men ever. His name was Chris Langan. Chris Langan had an IQ that was off the charts. They don't know how high. It was over 200. I think Einstein was like 150. This guy's over 200, right? He's a genius at the highest level, highest IQ ever recorded, yet he struggled in life. He's not the richest man. He did well. He's had some celebrity appearances on trivia shows and things of that nature, but he never really amounted to what everyone expected him to amount to. And, there was a study done on people like him with these high IQs, and they found that these kids who were gifted when they were young didn't really have better lives, didn't make more money than kind of the average person in their class, right? It was, some of them did really well, others did okay, others not so much. And so his whole point is that it isn't about having a higher IQ. He's like, once you have an average IQ, 120 or higher, he said, you are set up for success. And I love the analogy he gives. He's like, if you look at basketball players, right? You look at a guy like Steph Curry. Steph Curry's only 6'3", but he is one of the best NBA players, right? And so he was basically making the case that if it was all based on height for basketball, then the taller you are, you'd have an advantage. But the reality is it isn't just the height. Once you're at a certain height, let's say 6'2", 6'3", or higher, it really doesn't matter. It's about your skill set. It's about your hard work. And it's about understanding the opportunities that the game offers you and really taking advantage of them and exploiting them. He talks about Michael Jordan being 6'6". He's like, he wasn't a 7-footer. And so the same goes for us when it comes to us working in a way that, is in line with our abilities, in line with the environment, and in line with the times that we have come up in, guys. And so I really want to encourage you, everyone out there, to take the time this week and really look at your life, look at your goals, look at your skill set, look at anything you may have done for 5,000, 10,000 hours during the course of your life, and start to think about how you can translate that into more income, into more success, into more money, into really getting the goals that you set out for yourself to have. Because ultimately, I truly believe we're all geniuses, right? Einstein said that, not me. But one of the examples he gave a great example of this. He said, we're all geniuses, but you can't teach a goldfish to climb a tree like a monkey. And you can't teach a monkey to swim in a fish tank like a goldfish. And I thought that was a brilliant analogy, because it really puts the responsibility on us to realize what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and to structure our lives around our strengths. And that's really it for me tonight, guys. I really appreciate everyone tuning in. Next week, we're going to do 3 more chapters in here and go deeper into how we can really leverage the way our societies are structured to be better business people, better family men, better wives, and really live healthier lifestyles based on the habits that we adopt and the environments that we create for ourselves. Like I said, if anyone wants to jump on or any questions in the chat, any feedback in the chat, feel free to chime in, guys. I definitely want to keep this interactive. And I appreciate everyone tuning in tonight, as it's definitely something that I'm passionate about when it comes to just sharing different perspectives that allow us all to grow and allow us all to get better. Also want to give a shout out to Mario and Junior for finishing the challenge with me. We got all our days in. We had a challenge on our free real estate community group. If you want to jump into that group, let me know. It's called the Real Estate Investment Club. You can join it at school.com/REI Club. That's SKOOL/REI Club. And jump in there, tap in there, and we'll be able to definitely connect with you. We're going to be doing some more challenges as well, guys. Awesome, guys. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. If there aren't any other questions, concerns, or feedback, I'm going to sign off. But if you definitely want to discuss some things next week, guys, let me know. We can talk in advance. And I'll have a special guest on as well to kind of give their perspective on the book and how the book Outliers has really given them a perspective and a mind shift that allows them to see how that they can transform their lives based on just understanding the opportunities and the era that we're in and really leveraging those to the maximum. Because I'm telling you guys, we're all capable of greatness. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise, right? I know life can kind of beat you down, pressure, past experience, but at the end of the day, it's about what we want and what we're willing to work for, right? If you're willing to put in the work, anything is possible on the other end of that hard work, guys. So thanks, guys, for jumping on tonight. And I will see you guys next week. Some of you guys are going to be on the Tuesday call. We got JD Wild for anyone who's in Investor's Edge. If you want to learn more about that, shoot me a message. And I'll see you guys, some on Tuesday and others on Sunday. Enjoy the rest of your night, guys, and stay tuned for more. Signing off.